Hello everyone. About a year ago, the Iris Orthodoxy section of the Gear Lab was introduced, and it's certainly one of the Gear Labs of all time. Like, seriously guys, you've done half a job and just hit send? Whatever. France had one of the most powerful navies in the world at the time, and despite being genetically hardwired to hate them, I must admit, the French had some pretty good stuff. So, here's my proposal on how to properly fill out their section of the Gear Lab. Starting out, we have to fill out the existing weapon types. Up first, destroyer guns. Opening with the Quad 130 Model 1932, the Dunkirk secondaries. They've been in the game for a while now, but are completely inaccessible to EN players. Would be crafted from the blue single 130. Related to the 130s is the twin 127-54 caliber Model 1948. This dual-purpose gun served as the main armament for a number of post-war destroyers and cruisers. As a reference to it originally being a 130mm gun, downscaled for better interoperability with the US ammunition, it would be crafted from the purple twin 130. The third and final new DD gun is the twin 136mm Model 1934. The centerpiece for the Mogador class large destroyers that gave them exceptional firepower for a destroyer. These will be developed from the single-barreled counterpart, the Model 29, as either a gold or rainbow gun, featuring an even greater volume of fire. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot for cruisers. Most of what they had is already here. They didn't develop a whole lot of cruiser guns, and the ones they did were used on multiple classes. Best I can really do is the gold triple 152 Model 1930 from full scales, as well as maybe a purple variant to serve as an intermediate. Battleship guns are slightly better, by virtue of there being a number of PR ships that came with BB caliber guns. Eventually all PR gear ends up being craftable in the lab. In this case, the breast gun, being a large cruiser version of the Dunkirk gun, would be craftable from said gun. Champagne's 406 and Flandre's 380s would be craftable from the Richelieu gun. Unfortunately, anything else would have to be an enhanced re-release of existing gear. They had plenty on the drawing board, don't get me wrong. 400 and 420mm guns were being looked at as part of the Alsace class, and the French archives have information pertaining to a 431mm gun, but no guns or mountings for them have appeared, even on paper. Best I can do is one based on the 450mm Model 1920 guns that are in the early concept stages. In this case, a twin mount similar to the Georgia gun, but with slightly less damage and a faster reload. Things start looking better when it comes to AA. The aforementioned 130 Model 1932 was the first dual-purpose gun to be put on a capital ship, in both dual and quad mounts, and as such should be blue rarity heavy caliber AA. Specifically time-fused, as with the next few guns I'm going to propose, in order to give us more than 4 options. Next step up, the twin 100mm 45 Model 1930. These guns armed Algerie, the Richelieus, and Battleship Lorraine, and were set to be equipped on a number of other ships, with an upgraded 1933 model before the war put an end to those plans. A purple gun that would be weaker in damage than its contemporaries, but would have a higher reload due to its smaller caliber. Upgrading leads to the twin 100 Model 1945, an upgraded gun featuring a 55 caliber barrel and improved shell handlings built for the Richelieu class battleship. In game, this would be a straight upgrade of the previously discussed model, keeping the same basic premise: time fuse, lower damage, higher firing rate. Could also do an AA version of the twin 127mm dual purpose gun discussed in the DD section. Now, on to brand new stuff, starting with torps. Of course, we have the existing rare twin 550 and elite triple 550, which will obviously be part of the tech tree, but beyond that, not much. They didn't really go beyond triple tubes, but that's okay. Since they put triples on even more modern ships, it's fairly easy to give them a super rare triple 550. The existing 550s already have a quicker reload compared to their more numerous contemporaries, so keeping that is obvious. But the gold set would also have higher damage, so they don't get completely outpaced by the more numerous tubes in higher rarities. Sub-torps get a bit more difficult. Luckily, Gear Lab sub-torps stop begin at elite, which happens to be the highest rarity of the 550mm 24V subtorp. Beyond that is the 550mm 44 that was under development during the war. Full disclosure, not much is known about the 44. It might not even be a sub-torpedo. Might have been better off not doing sub-torps, but I'm including it anyway to get the whole lot. Gameplay wise, it's just an upgrade to the 24V, bringing it in line with other nations' gold torps. And now, for the good stuff. The planes. France had a pretty vested interest in naval aviation just both before and after the war, which makes sense when you think about it. Before the war, France was well on its way to joining the big boys in the more than one aircraft carrier club, and as such was developing new planes to properly equip them. In the fighter category we begin with the rare Gordeau-Lisieux GL2 and elite de Wartime D790 already found in game. De Wartime weren't satisfied with the 790 and after getting nationalised into one of the confusing acronym aircraft societies got to work on a new plane based on the source of the D790, eventually becoming the SE-582, a naval version of the SE-580. It started life as an impressive, heavily armed twin-engine heavy fighter with tandem engines driving a single contra-rotating propeller. Its development would be allowed to slowly continue during Germany's occupation of France, with the two V12s being exchanged for a single 24-cylinder H engine. As the war ended, prototypes were being built and development continued, but redesigns to the aircraft as a result of changing to a more mature engine delayed the project. This was compounded by the Navy being more interested in the SO-8000 Narval, and the jet engine looking like more than just a passing fad. As such, the plane was cancelled. This plane would be similar to other heavy fighters, carrying a pair of 1,000-pound bombs, though the 582 would also have a 30mm autocannon in addition to the 420mm, at the cost of being slightly frail and as slow as the flatfuck. There's also the aforementioned SO-8000, but since I talked about it in my previous Gear Lab video I'm going to skip the history and just reiterate my concept for its in-game appearance. An ultra-rare rocket fighter, also capable of intercept similar to the Wyvern, armed with 8 rockets to have the same modifiers as the ones found on the gold FW-190, but with less damage per rocket. Moving on to dive bombers, is the rare Henri Newport LN-42. The LN-42 was the final development of the LN-40 family of ship-based dive bombers, doing away with the inverted gull wings and using an improved 1000 plus horsepower version of the Hispano-Suiza 12Y engine. In game it would carry a single 500-pound bomb and be armed with two 7.5mm machine guns and a single 20mm autocannon. For the elite tier is the de Wartime D750, a twin-engine bomber meant to fly from the Joffre sisters. Due to the French surrender during its trials, this type never made it into service. Armed with 3 7.5mm machine guns and a pair of 500-pound bombs. For the super rare is the post-war Nord 1500 Norclair, a twin-engine dive bomber in development post-war. Intended to be a carrier-based bomber and ASW aircraft carrying 2 tons of ordnance. Its first prototype flew in August 1947, but several issues found in the prototype caused heavy criticism, leading it to its abandonment. The rise of jet engines probably didn't help either. For its implementation in AL, it would be armed with a pair of 20mm autocannons and carry 4 500-pounders. My thought being that carrying numerous intermediate weight bombs would allow it to stand out amongst the other gold dive bombers. Finally, the torpedo bombers. For the rare, the existing Levasseur PL7. Moving up to elite brings the Sinkao Cow 600. Developed prior to the war as a competitor to the D750, it would share the same fate, having its test campaign interrupted by the surrender, killing the program. For its implementation in game, it would have 2 7.5mm machine guns and a new T2 version of the Iris torpedo, which it would carry 3 of, like its predecessor. Moving up to super rare is of course the Brigitte BR-810 from the Joffre raid, but alongside that is the Sunkak NC-1070, not to be confused with the NC-1071, which was its jet-powered second prototype. a post-war contemporary to the Nord 1500, built as a twin-engined attack aircraft and torpedo bomber, making its first flight in 1947 and continuing until 1948, where damage to the prototype would cause them to focus more on the jet version, but it would still end up getting the axe due to not getting the desired increase in performance. In Arzelay, the 1070 would fly equipped with 4 20mm cannons and 4 T0 Iris torpedoes. The idea is that when picking between this and the BR-810, players must consider whether they want the ability for their bombers to intercept, or the extra order. Alright, that's your lot. This was a bit tougher than I was expecting. I know their surrender during the war hit them hard when it came to equipment development, but I thought they would have a bit more, especially when it comes to aircraft. But it turns out most of these would have been low rarity, and that would just bloat the tech tree and they'd never get used. It's still kind of wild how, despite having 3 carriers, there's no dive bombers in game though. What were they thinking? Anyway, did I miss anything you think should have been on here? Let me know if I did. And until next time, fair winds and following seas.